Hey everyone, this is Brina. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Midweek Motivation. I'm grateful that you've chosen to join me again this week. And don't forget to like and share the video. Share it with someone who you think needs to be plugged in to these weekly messages. And of course, would love to hear your comments. So be sure to comment below as we're sharing today's word. So for today, the word is going to come from the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament, chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, and then verse 10. And reading from the NIV, it says, "The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of the brothers, came from Jerusalem with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, 'Those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The walls of Jerusalem are broken down and its gates have burned with fire.' When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven." And then skipping down to verse 10. And verse 10 is where Nehemiah is praying. "They are your servants and your people, whom you redeemed by your great strength and your mighty hand." And verse 11, I need to read that too. "O Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man." And so the word or the phrase for today is divine inspiration. So this is Nehemiah writing this firsthand account of his own experiences after the exile. And this is one of my favorite books, and Nehemiah is one of my favorite characters. And so at this time, the Jewish people are in exile, including Nehemiah. He is in a province called Susa. He is serving King Artaxerxes as a cupbearer. And there's a remnant of people in Jerusalem who were left after the exile and after most of the people were taken captive. And so Nehemiah is serving as a cupbearer of Artaxerxes, and he receives news that Jerusalem is in great distress and trouble. The walls of the city have been broken and burned, and the walls of a city served as a means of protection. So the people who are left there are vulnerable to attacks because the walls have been broken and burned down. And so when he gets this news about what's happening in the homeland, you see how he reacts. He weeps, he fasts, and then he prays over the situation that is going on. And so I didn't read verses 5 through 9 for the sake of time, but I encourage you to read that because then you'll see the bulk of Nehemiah's prayer to God after he hears this news about what is happening at home. But as he wraps up his prayer in verses 10 and 11, and we did read that, we see that he asks God for success and favor as he plans to go before the king. Now, in his job as a cupbearer, he goes before the king often. His job is to taste the king's cup so that it's not poisonous. So if it is poisonous, guess who dies? The cupbearer. So Nehemiah is in a trusted position of power. He sees the king on a regular basis. And so as he prepares to go to the king after he receives this news, he's praying for success and favor. He's praying and he's asking God for divine inspiration about what to do. Again, that's our word for today, divine inspiration. So Nehemiah is not the only person that can get divine inspiration from God, right? We can too. So divine inspiration are those instructions that we get from God, clear instructions on how to handle a situation, how to handle, how to move forward in something. And this is not just inspiration, but it's divine inspiration. It's inspiration and insight and instruction on how to do a thing directly from God. So how do we tap into this divine inspiration? First, we have to recognize that we have a problem. There's something that we have to solve. And we realize that I can't do it in my own intellect, my own strength. I don't have what it takes to handle this situation. In the case of Nehemiah, he was in an exile situation, and although he had a prominent position, he was taken from his homeland. So he didn't necessarily have the freedom to just come and go as he pleased. And he didn't know what he would be facing in Jerusalem if he would be allowed to go. So he realized that he had a problem that he didn't have the answers to. And so he recognized that I need help. So that's the first step to tapping into divine inspiration. Recognize that you need help. And then seek the one who can give you the help, and that's God. Seek God for the inspiration that you need to handle the situation. In the case of Nehemiah, he fasted and prayed after he learned about the problem. And what's interesting to me is that he didn't try to figure out the problem first, then fast and pray. He fasted and prayed first. He went right into seeking God for insight and direction. Now, it doesn't say in the passage that he asked for guidance, specific guidance or steps, but we can imply based on how he prayed. And again, I encourage you to read the whole chapter, Nehemiah chapter 1. You'll see the prayer he prayed, and we can imply that when he says, give me success as I go before the king, he must have been asking or thinking about asking for some kind of wisdom to handle the situation. And then if you read chapter 2, you'll see that he goes before the king in his position as cupbearer. The king notices that his face is sad, his countenance is sad. And so when the king asks, what's wrong, that's Nehemiah's open door. And so Nehemiah shares with him what he's learned. And then the king immediately says, okay, let me help you. Gives him permission to go to Jerusalem. Gives him letters to give to other leaders and kings along the way who will help him in his quest to rebuild the walls of his homeland. So the king gives him access to resources. Look at how God answers and gives this divine inspiration. Gives him access to the resources he will need to be successful. So as a result of the divine inspiration he gets from God, he has clear instructions on how to move forward, and he has success and favor, just what he asked for in Nehemiah chapter 1. So what does this have to do with us? If you need success and inspiration from God on how to handle a situation and you just don't know what to do, seek God for divine inspiration. Acknowledge that he is God. He is all-powerful. He is your complete source of everything. Confess your sins. You'll see that in chapter 1, Nehemiah confessed his own sins as well as the sins of the people. And then be honest with God. I don't know what to do, God. I need you. And I thank you in advance for the inspiration you're going to give me to handle this situation. And then watch what God does. Just like for Nehemiah. God came through for Nehemiah. He will come through for you as well. I am a witness that whenever I seek God in humility and confession, knowing that I can't do this on my own, God always is faithful and gives me the divine inspiration and the divine guidance that I need to move forward. He gives me success and favor. So that is the word for today, divine inspiration. Tap into it today. God is our source, and he is standing ready to give us exactly what we need. So that's it. Like and share the video.